Hey everybody, this is Jim West and Dale Ross at I guess we call it the Jim and Dale Show. Not Chip and Dale, but Jim and Dale. There's a big difference between that, Dale. My name's not Chip, that's for sure. But
We're not
Dale,
chipmunk.
exactly. Maybe we're Al and Simon, and we need another person. Maybe we can get Theodore here. But
Yeah.
Dale, where you located tonight? It looks like I think you told me somewhere in Central Tennessee.
Yep. Gallatin, Tennessee, right now.
Wow, that's northeast of Nashville. Is that right?
Northeast of Nashville. Yep.
Wow.
Be here through tomorrow, late tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. The good thing about it, is the weather already come through? You've had any?
It's cold here, I can tell you that. It was supposed to get to 61 here today, but when I left out at about 2 hours ago, it didn't feel like no 61. It's
I
kind of
think it got
cold.
to 44 here in Hillsborough, but tomorrow, the first night of the football championships, the weather should be pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Last time
42 here. I'm sorry, keep going.
I think what I read, I'm gonna pull up WRAL. I think they're expecting 60 some degrees tomorrow, and the low Friday night's going to be like 56.
Oh, wow.
And that means, you can probably wear a hoodie or a jacket or something like that
Well,
to
unfortunately, I definitely can't make that game. That's impossible, and I'm questionable about Saturday right now. So
so Friday, 62 degrees is the high, and they're now saying low of 53. So that's very good. I don't mind 50s. I can handle 50s out there.
that's not bad. If you're moving around, that's not bad.
But let's talk about Saturday. They're saying that high is going to be 74 degrees, but there's a chance of rain coming in. Says mostly cloudy and dry for the majority of the day. A strong cold front is moving a little faster and looks to be scattered rain into the area by Saturday evening at night. So that second game at Raleigh, that between Cardinal Gibbons and Julius Chambers, we might not have the best rain. And you know what happened? I saw that first game between Chambers
And
and
weather, yeah.
Cardinal Gibbons, and we had like a 3 hour rain delay, and that was awful. So
Well, thankfully, of course, I don't know. It depends on how drastic a change in weather is, but most likely would not be thunderstorms at least. So maybe no lightning to delay things. They can play in the rain. It's that lightning that they have to, you know. So
oh, I agree. The lightning is a lot different than rain. Rain's not going to kill you. Lightning can kill you.
yeah,
It's a big difference on that. So the first game, Dale, is at Keenan Stadium tomorrow at 7 o'clock. It's going to be the 3A championship between Rose and Dudley, and I thought we'd go ahead and talk about that one really quick.
yeah,
First thing I want to do is kind of talk about the 3A brackets. We'll start out with the East, just about the teams that going in who I thought would have a really good chance and who didn't. I thought Eastern Alamance and Havelock, those two teams, I thought they would make a pretty good run. And when Eastern Alamance beat Havelock, that gave Eastern a lot more. Oh, I just did something here. Let me back. There we go. When Eastern beat Havelock, I thought, gosh, Eastern, they took it to a different level. Um, Looking down a little bit, I always thought that Lee County was a team that you could never dismiss. And who did they play on that? It was Southern, I think it was Southern Durham, if I remember right. No, Southern Nash. Southern Nash, I believe, was the number 12 seed. And Southern Nash is a team you can never dismiss either. They have the great double wing offense. And I knew Jacksonville and Hunts. Those were two teams that I thought they were kind of sleepers. More Jacksonville than Jacksonville did make a pretty good run. They actually went all the way to the regional championship game and lost to Rose. And on the backside, I know 71st was the third seed. I just didn't have them among my favorites, and they actually were defeated in the third round by Rose. Going down here a little bit, Terry Sanford's kind of the same way. Felt about the same way about them. And the other team, I think this is Northern Nash. This is the team that I just didn't know enough about. And Scotland. Scotland's another team. I honestly thought when Scotland got into the fourth round, they were playing Rose. I was like, you know what? Scotland's in pretty good shape. And then what happened? Rose beat them 49-28. So,
Yeah, I thought Scotland would make it to the game tomorrow night. That's what I thought, and so Rose, and I thought that going into the playoffs, and
right.
Rose taking them out was a bit of a surprise to me.
And on the west side, Dudley was always my favorite. They
Yeah,
were
same here.
the number three seed,
Yeah,
and I mean they beat somebody 60-0. North Henderson beat Ledford 53-10. They beat Kings Mountain 36-10. Beat Statesville 20-6. Statesville's got a really good offense. To hold them to 6 points is
yeah,
amazing. And then last week they skunked South Point. I did not think South Point was going to win that game, but I thought they would score against
be
Dudley.
a closer. Yeah,
A
exactly.
much
I didn't
closer
think it
game.
would be quite that margin. Maybe pushing three scores, but not. Yeah, and not holding them to no points. That's an impressive win by Dudley.
And, on the west side, Pisk, I know that they were the number one seed. I never thought they were a number one seed caliber team. I mean, they were a good team, but I just thought Dudley was heading over heels better.
Right.
And Pisgah actually lost to South Point, who ended up losing to Dudley 38-0. But football is not linear. Just because team A beats team B doesn't mean, and team B beats team C doesn't mean that team A is going to
Right.
beat team C. It just doesn't happen that way. So going down here on the other side on the top half, Crest was the team that I always had my eyes out on, and they made it to the fourth round, and they lost to South Point.
Yeah. So
So
that's for me. I thought Crest would win that game. Um, I thought they were. I could have seen them making it to, tomorrow night, or to Dudley, I should say.
right,
Not tomorrow night, but to Dudley. I think Dudley is the team. All the whole. They were who I picked at the very start of this, and no
right.
reason to ever change.
On the back end here, Dudley was just clear the favorite on here. Although Kings Mountain was a team that I always have to keep Kings Mountain on the radar. I don't know about you, but I always have to keep them on the radar because I know they're athletic. Uh,
But for me, I agree with that, and I'm a fan of Kings Mountain. But for me, it's what have you done for me? And I don't know. I wanted to see them make it to face. I just they just didn't. I don't know. They got to win. They got a hump. They got to get over, and they're having a
and
hard time.
right, there just about every program has a hump. Unless you win a state championship once every 5 or 6 years, you're going to have that hump.
Hmm.
When you get to the level of Kings Mountain, where you get up here, up here, up here every year, and go home deep in the playoffs. Usually, I mean, Kings Mountain was,
Yep.
I think they were in the third round, which after the top first two rounds, you're getting making a pretty good run on that. Kings Mountain's one of those teams that has trouble getting to their side. Huff and 4A is another one. We'll talk about them later on.
Yep.
Now on the bottom side of here, High Brighton and Statesville were the two teams that I really had my eyes on. I know a lot of people thought Concord would give High Brighton a pretty good game, and I guess they did, but it was 27-14 Concord. This score right here, Statesville beating High Brighton, really shocked me.
By that
Statesville winning
margin.
by that
Yeah.
margin, 42-0. I just didn't see that happen. And so all of a sudden, Statesville all of a sudden just got a lot of credibility. Losing to Dudley by 2 touchdowns is still a very good score. I mean, it's 95% of all 3A teams are going to lose to Dudley by more than 2 touchdowns. So that's impressive. And Colton Dudley and that
Hmm.
just potent offense to 20 points is pretty darn impressive. So we had a couple comments here. Chris from Tarboro, a friend over in Tarboro, says, Tarboro here in the house. Enjoy these podcasts. Thank you. Last time Dudley was in the state championship, they humiliated Cape Fear. I remember that. That was blowouts. It was like, was it like something like 59-10 or something like that?
Hmm.
And and he also mentions South Point and Rocky Mount. They played back-to-back years in the state championship game. Rocky Mount won in 2015, and South Point won in 2016.
Hmm.
And I remember watching the 2015 game, and just thinking that maybe it was 2014 and 15. I can't remember. I think it was 2014 and 15. Come think of it. And I remember the 2014 game. Rocky Mount just kind of snuck up on there on everybody. I don't think they were really a sleeper team, if you ask me, or dark horse, and they ended up winning the state championship. And it was one of these teams that make teams look ugly, and I love that. A team that can make the other team look ugly, win an ugly game. That's my type of team. And as like Chris said, one of them won in overtime. I think it was the first game was when the Rocky Mountain won in
Yeah.
overtime.
So one thing I want to point out is that it's South Point with an E is in Rock Hill, South Carolina, in
Right,
York County. That's the way we around here in these parts. That's how we have to identify the two because we got two South Point teams that are very close to each other um, in geography. One's in North Carolina, one's in South Carolina. The one in South Carolina has the E. South Point out of Belmont, North Carolina, no E. Just just so you understand. Around here, that's a little bit significant in the Charlotte
right.
area.
I see Chris made a comment about Mount Tabor didn't live up to the 3A this year. I thought was Mount Tabor not 4A this year? Let me go into 4As real quick and look at it. For some reason, I know this is one of the realignment years, so I think Mount Tabor might have been 4A. Maybe they're 3A. I can't remember, but uh, I don't even know if they made the playoffs this year. Did they?
Uh, I draw a blank. I don't know.
Let's see here. I want to do Mount Tabor max ups real quick, and let's look at their conference here or schedule. I can find out in their schedule. I know they play in a. Let's see, they had to play Reynolds, Davie, Glenn, Reagan, Parkland. I think. Let me double check here. I think that's. Let's see here. Let me go into more. I was thinking they're 4A. Maybe it might be a split 3A, 4A conference, but I'm pretty sure that's. I was thinking they're 4A this year. Yeah, right here, 4A West. There we go.
Okay.
All righty.
And to answer that question, let's see now. It is the same South Point that Shelby played earlier this year. Played them close too.
Right.
Man, Shelby, South Point's man. They've had some athletes come through there, like a lot of those York County, South Carolina teams.
Now,
They are
Dale,
coached. They are coached by Devontae Holloman.
Devontae was
You
where was he
remember
at
that
Davie
name?
at one time? Was he at Davie or where was he?
No, he played at Independence for 3 years
Right.
for Tom Knotts, and he played 1 year at South Point. He transferred to South Point his senior year.
Where was he? Where has he coached before though?
He coached at another school in South Carolina.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I know the name, but it's escaping me. It was a smaller school, I think in Central South Carolina. I'm not.
Okay, I gotcha.
I'd have to look and I'd have to look and see. Well, I can look and see. What am I saying? If I have to, why don't I
Yeah, we
just
gotta
look?
look it up here. So Devontae, so Holloman.
Uh huh. Coach.
Oh,
So,
is he Wikipedia? He's from Charlotte. Played for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a they pronounce it Beaufort's in
yeah,
South Carolina,
Buford. Yep, Buford. Uh-huh. Yep, that's where he was. That's it.
and that's down in the. So
That's right.
now going to the game here, I'm
That's where
gonna
it
shock
was.
you between Dudley and Rose. I'm gonna surprise you and pick Dudley to win this game. I'm not joking. That's not a surprise. I think Dudley's
Yeah.
the comfortable favorite, the safe pick on that. I will say though, Rose has a very good offense, but Statesville had a very good offense, and Dudley held them to 6 points. Dudley's is a complete team. I'd be very shocked to see Rose win, but I will be there at 7 o'clock tomorrow, and I'll either eat crow or just watch the game. Who's your
Yes,
pick on that game?
I thought your shock me was going to be more of they're going to play it a real close game. I think you're sane in your pick. I believe that this is a two score or greater game. Not maybe not too much greater, but I think it's a two score game easily. I think Dudley's the clear favorite. If that changes at kickoff, I'll be somewhere between Charlotte and Middle Tennessee, probably closer towards Middle Tennessee, or maybe I'll be somewhere towards the mountains by then, hopefully.
Right
So
over
yeah,
here, this right here, this score, the 20-6. I see something kind of close to that.
hmm
Kind of maybe like a 27-10 win. I won't say maybe 27-10 Dudley tomorrow, but Chris says I'm pulling for Greenville since it's next door to Tarboro, but Dudley's going to be too much for them. We agree with you on that. And
yep,
one of my childhood friends lives in Greenville, and his daughters attend Rose High School. So I asked him if he was going to go to the game. He says, no, this is hunting season, which people from the eastern part of the state can appreciate. So
uh,
I think he was actually ended up hunting bear. He went down
oh
to
boy,
Terrell County and to Hyde County. Terrell County is where Columbia is located, in Hyde County's Matamesquite High School, which is Swan Quarter, Englehart, a couple other small towns. So let's go to the 1As. This is a big game here.
hmm
Going into the playoffs in the East, there was only one team that I ever gave any type of credence to, and that was Tarboro. And I thought it was going to be a race to see who was going to play Tarboro in the fourth round and who was going to play Tarboro in the fifth round. In the fourth round, I thought Tarboro would probably Northampton or Rosewood, and sure enough, Northampton beat Rosewood, and Tarboro beat them 27-8. What I did not expect was Pender County to come out. I thought they'd get past the first round, and I thought they'd get past the second round because I didn't think West Columbus was going to give them that hard of a fight. But they beat Northmore 50-12. They beat Northside, and I thought Northside was probably the best on the bottom part of the East
hmm
bracket. And they beat Northside by 6 points. And I don't know if you remember this, Dale, but last week I said I thought Pender was going to play Tarboro pretty close for a half. And I think at halftime it was like 6-0 or 6-all, something close like that. And it was 12-all late into the game, and Tarboro got a safety and made it 14-12 Carborough, and then Pender wins. Pender gives up the ball, and Tarboro, I think, scores a touchdown, makes it 22-12. Pender, from what I gathered from talking to people, they had a pretty good sized line, both offense and defense. I don't know if anybody. Oh, let's see here. Chris says Pender was huge. Okay, and Northampton was huge, so they surprised us this year. Okay. The one thing I always told people, I said the only way that I know that you could possibly beat Tarboro is to go vertical, and that means to pass. And I didn't think Pender was going to do it, but I did think they were big enough that they might fight for a half, and they fought more than a half. They fought for about probably 3.5 quarters. So they did pretty good on that. So
yep,
Tarboro to me was a clear favorite. I was Yes, I'll admit I was surprised it was only a 10-point victory over Pender. Now let's come out to the West, and the West was Eastern Randolph. They lost in the third round. I thought Eastern Randolph was the team to beat, and Murphy beat them 64-31. Going down Murphy, you can never dismiss Murphy, although Coach Gentry is no longer there. It's still a great program. They made it to the fourth rounds and lost to Robbinsville. No shame in that whatsoever. And you got Thomasville. I know you're a big on Thomasville,
Yeah,
and what's this team? North. I think this is North Orland. Yeah, North Orland on that. North Orland's. I was always big on North Orland. Those two teams. That having both those teams in the West in the 1A, it gives a lot of credence to 1A football. Those teams are really good. I mean, Cherokee, they've been to a state championship only 4 years ago. They had a pretty good season. Robbinsville, you can never dismiss Robbinsville. They went to the regional championship game. And that's just the top half of the West. I mean, you had
right.
one probably about 5 or 6 pretty good names here. Then you have Mitchell. You got Swain County. You can never dismiss Swain. You had a pretty stout Andrews team who lost to Starmount. Both Starmount and Andrews, great seasons. Starmount went to a state championship and lost to Wallace Rose Hill about 5 or 6 years ago. You have Mount Airy also, and I thought Mount Airy was going to represent the West in the
Yeah,
1A state championship after Eastern Randolph lost. And the reason why is Mount Airy's defense is just so stout. And look what happened here. Mitchell beat them. They beat them
yeah.
21-14. And I saw this game last weekend I saw it on live stream where Mitchell pretty much handled Robbinsville. Robbinsville just couldn't do anything couldn't stop Mitchell from running the ball. Mitchell's passing game, they do a little bit of bubble screens here and there. They had a couple pretty 20-25 yard passes, but they're not going to beat you through the air. They're going to beat you on the ground. And Mitchell's physical. What I was really surprised was I thought Robbinsville would have a little bit more speed, but they don't. You're talking about guys that are they're not going to keep up with the
Hmm.
size of Tarboro or something like that had they won. But have some speed at the same time. They have a little bit of a passing game. I don't think it's going to be enough to beat Tarboro. I'm going to take Tarboro by I'm going to say probably 2 to 3 touchdowns. Mitchell's not that big. I mean, they're decent size. But I don't think they're huge. I say Tarboro wins by 2 to 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so I think you're probably sane there on that one. Tarborough's the team that I picked to win it all at the start of the playoffs, and they're here. I didn't expect Mitchell to be here. I don't know. When you look at the West and you look at all the teams you got to go through to get there, and to think that they could get through everything. The Mount Airy one was the big one for me. It really makes you think, wow. Um, so they might still have some gas in the tank. Who knows? It's hard for me to pick against Tarboro. Really is. I think I don't know. Something tells me Mitchell can make it a close game, though. I think you're sane in your pick, but I think my two scores is more in the neighborhood of 10 points.
10 points. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Mitchell's had a really good run too. They beat South Davidson 49-10. They beat Swain County 49-14. Beat Thomasville 38-21. That's a good victory.
Hmm.
Beat No, it's not Thomasville. Is that Thomas? Yeah, it's Thomasville. I guess the one up there was Thomas Jefferson. I was looking at before. There you go. Uh, and they really shocked me by beating Mount Airy because Mount Airy had allowed 25 points the whole entire season. And I had
Yeah.
people say they didn't play a stout competition. There's only a few 1A teams that do. Tarboro is a team that does schedule some pretty good competition outside of their conference. So I give them a lot of credit. When they play Rocky Mountain, that's a pretty pretty good thing on that. Um, it's going to be a fun game to go. That's going to be at noon tomorrow, Saturday, and I am looking forward to watching that game. So let's go to the next game. I think the next game is a two-way, if I remember right, at 3 o'clock is at Carter Finley Stadium,
Mhm.
and you got Walls Rose Hill from the east, and they will be playing Shelby. Two teams have been to a lot of state championships in the last 10 years, and two really great quality programs. Dale, when you think of Shelby, what do you think of first?
What do I think of first?
Yes.
Anytime Shelby is mentioned to me, I think about all the state championships that I drove up to. And of course, Shelby people have to come through Charlotte. And the number of times I've seen those Shelby flags waving off of cars going up to state championships, quite honestly, that's the first thing that comes to mind. This is a team that's been here a number of times. Um, so besides lion and lots of tradition, etc., that's what I think. That's the first thing I think about is their appearances in a number of state championships.
See, Shelby to me feels like a 3A program that's stuck in 2A.
Well, they play a lot of 3A level competition.
Right.
So they're playing the Kings Mountains, the Crests. They're playing their Cleveland County um, rivals, and Cleveland County is just loaded with good football. That's a football rich county right there with good powers. Burns and Crest and Shelby and Kings Mountain. I mean, you think about that. That's some good football right there.
Right.
So I agree with you. They're a team. It goes back. You know what, Jim? I think about Shelby played North Mecklenburg back. I guess it was around 2000 and somewhere between 2003 and 2006. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact year, but I remember all the big talk around about how a 2A team was coming up to play a 4A team, a Charlotte 4A team. And all I could think about even then was this, people, uh, this is not what you would want to think of it with a 2A team. This is a team that can go toe to toe with a Crest, and Crest is Crest has proven state level competence many years. So
Right.
yeah, I agree with you. They are a team. They're a 2A team that plays at a 3A level, and quite honestly, they can beat the majority of 4A teams. Um, so not a bad program here.
Not a bad program at all. That's for sure. The I'll move something out here. I was, had a message from Chris says, "What year did Shelby and Crest separate, and does anyone know why they stopped being Shelby Crest?" Well, it's they never it was never a separation. Crest was a new school back in the 1960s, I believe, and Shelby Crest is really in Bowling Springs. If I correct on that, I think it's Bowling
That's right.
Springs.
Yeah. So you to go to Crest, you turn you make the exit off of like you're going up to Gardner Webb or down to Gardner Webb, I should say, which is Bowling Springs. That's correct.
So I'm gonna pick up. Someone
Shelby is
mentions
Shelby High School is right there on 74. You pass right by the high school on 74. After you've passed by one of my favorite barbecue places, Red Bridges. Had to throw that in there. If you're in Shelby, you want to go to Red Bridges.
I love any good barbecue. As
Now,
long as
people
it's
will
not
tell you
Winks.
there will be people that tell you Austin Bridges is the way to go, place to go, but I say Red Bridges, and I say if you got a chance, go to both and see which one you like better.
So Crest opened up in 1967, and Burns when did Burns open up? And they also opened up in '67.
I thought Burns was older. Okay. Okay.
Well, at least they played football in started playing football in '67.
I don't know. So I'm just it's just in my mind for some reason I thought Burns was a little older, but
And
I'm
Burns
not.
was horrible those first years. Look at that: 0 and 10, 0 and 10. First year 2 and 7, 0 and 10, 0 and 10, 2 and 8, 0 and 9, 4 and 6, 5 and 5, 5, 4 and 1. Then they had a couple decent seasons, and they went back to 2, 7, 1, 0 and 10. But Crest, on the other hand, they didn't win a game their first season. Went 3 and 7, 1 and 9, 3 and 7, 5, 4, 1, 5, 4, 8, 2 and 1, 7, 3. So
Yeah,
Crest, they struggled at the beginning too. They had a 1, 8 and 1 season, 4 and 6, 4 and 6, but they were a little bit better in Burns. Starting in the '80s is when Crest really turned it on.
yeah. I was thinking it was, so I was all close. I was thinking it was the late '70s, but
And
I
then
was
they got
close.
moved up to 4A in the mid '80s. Now let's just for the heck of it, let's look at Shelby. Let me get
Now
Shelby
they've
up here.
bounced around too in classification,
Right,
4A, 3A. I don't think
Shelby.
they've ever been 2A, have they?
They have not. They were always 3A or 4A. Except
Yeah,
maybe let me check the very first year. They played Belmont's. Belmont there was a Belmont High School that later on became South Point. I think that was a consolidation. South Point was created in I think '68, if I remember correctly. 69, 69. Okay. And here's Hunter Huss. I'm sure a lot of people remember Hunter Huss. They haven't been around all that long either. I mean, they have somewhat, but they played pretty much a JV schedule in '62, '63, and then '64 they started playing. But look at Shelby though, 7-2-1, 9-2. This is back when they played in the Western North Carolina High School Athletic Association. 8-1-1, 9-1-2. 6-4 was a down year for Shelby. 8-2, 9-1, 5-5. That coach probably got tarred and feathered going 5-5. And then what happens? They win a Western North Carolina High School Athletic Association championship. That is not a state championship. A lot of
right.
people will call that a state championship, but it wasn't. The reason why it was basically the best of 43 schools in the state. Uh, Not every school had the opportunity to play in the Western North Carolina Association, but every school, even back in the '60s, had the opportunity, at least until about 769 or so, could play in the NCHSAA. I'd say until '69 because before '69 the schools were segregated and there was no segregated no black schools in the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. It just didn't happen. Um, but look at that. Shelby 12-0-1, 11-2. They get to lose to East Rowan. So I mean, here's Salisbury. We talked about Salisbury a couple weeks ago. A great program.
Hmm.
I mean, they just dominated that. Another championship here. Lost to Salisbury, but I digress. Let me go back to here. We were talking about 2A and Shelby. They started out beating Owen, and they just tore up Owen. I mean, that was just Owen couldn't couldn't do anything against Shelby. And then Shelby beat a pretty good Polk County team. Then they beat East Gaston. East Gaston got to give them credit for
They had a
kind
good
of going
season.
out. They had a good season. Going to third round
Yeah,
for East Gaston is incredible.
they had a
And
good
this
season.
right here is probably the second best program, at least in the 2As in the states in the last 60-year reasonable.
You got to say more than 2A. You got to say they're one of the best programs in the state. Come
Yeah,
on,
I
right?
mean, yeah, it's the second. I think Shelby's the winningest program in the last 60 years, and Reesville is number two. So
Right, exactly. So it's yeah, they play at 2A, but that doesn't matter.
exactly.
Those are traditional winning programs, baby.
And, a lot of people were talking about Shelby and East Surrey. I told everybody beforehand. I said in the fourth round, Shelby Reesville was the varsity game, and Maiden and East Surrey was the JV game, and that JV game was a good one. But when the varsity plays
Yep.
JV, what happened?
Yeah.
Varsity wins big time. On the west side, Shelby was a team to looked at for. Uh, I thought Hendersonville and Burns, both of those teams, you can never dismiss.
I
Reedsville's a
thought
team
Burns,
like
but I picked Shelby all the way, and
right,
Burns. Certainly, Hendersonville was also one to think about, but
right. They're
and
athletic.
Reedsville was obviously the challenger early on. Is what I thought that's where it was going to come down to
Right.
the winner of that game.
In the bottom part of the West, Maiden, great. I think they got to the fourth round, lost to East Surrey. Salisbury is another team that you just can never dismiss. I was surprised that they lost to Maiden 32-20. I think at halftime it was 13-7 Maiden.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Monroe, that was a team. Dale, I thought Monroe was going to be the sleeper. They after they beat J.M. Robinson 60-29, because I thought J.M. Robinson was a really good program.
I thought they were going to have a better playoff run than what they had, but then of course they had to match up against Monroe. But I did not expect that kind of margin there. They
Right.
had a good They had a good season.
That game I thought was going to be just a dynamite game, and what happens? Monroe beats them by 31 points, and it shows you how little I know about football at times. East Surrey was a team that I just, I saw some comments here, Chris. Yeah, I agree with you. The Boaz brothers are just incredible. They've made East Surrey just a very special place the last 3 or 4 years. Uh, I was surprised that East Surrey beat Monroe by a score of 10-9. I thought it was going to be a really high scoring game. I actually thought Monroe would win that game. And, this is a fun sport. Football is a fun sport here.
Yep, no doubt.
Then, so Shelby, I thought they were the clear favorite in the West. In the East was a different story. You had Princeton, who was undefeated. Uh, Kinston, that's another team that's been to a state championship game before. Um, let's see here, going down a little bit. Who's this? Yeah, James Keenan. James Keenan. I didn't think they were great. Whiteville 56-0 over Camden, then beat James Keenan 56-0. Then they lose to St. Paul's. St. Paul's was a team that I liked just because they knew how to play defense. I
Mm-hmm.
thought they would have a really good run, and they did. They got to the fourth round, lost to Princeton. I was surprised by that. I thought that would be a very close game. Northeastern, that's a team you can never dismiss in the playoffs. Holmes, Edenton Holmes is a team you can never dismiss. Northeastern beating Holmes 50-0. That shocked me. Washington, I mean, that's another team that this year they've had a great offense. A lot of years they're known for their really good defense. And then you got Walls Rose Hill, you had Clinton and East Duplin, West Craven. All four of those teams are just dynamite. And let's look at Walls Rose Hill. What they did, they beat. This is Southwest Onslow, I think. I think that's it. Oh, Southwest Edgecombe beat them 71-36. Then beat West Craven 56-21. Walls Rose Hill scores some points, and then they can win a defensive struggle. They can beat East Duplin 21-17. And then they tore up Northeastern 57-22. And then last week, I don't know if you kept up on Twitter, Dale, but this
I did
game
as much as I
this game
could.
was
Yep.
tight.
I could only keep up in the second half because it's kind of bad. But I need to make money. So last week I was a customer down in Georgia. So for the first half of the game, I really couldn't keep up with anything. I didn't get back in Charlotte till second half of games, and I was keeping up on Twitter. Yes.
I think Walls Rose Hill better look at 1977 Arkansas Razorbacks. Right before the Orange Bowl, the Razorbacks lost three of their star
Yeah.
athletes. Walls Rose Hill has lost some star athletes due to COVID. They're not going to be playing in the state championship game. Walls Rose Hill has a lot of depth, though. Don't get me wrong; they don't rebuild, they reload. But at the same time, those the replacement players are not going to have the experience as the starters. It just doesn't happen.
But now, who did I say I would have coach one game?
Yes, Lou Holtz.
You're going to need some motivation.
Uh, I think I told you that story online a couple of weeks ago, but I'll say it again. Where this guy had a dream before that game and said, "Coach, Lou Holtz was giving his pregame speech and it says, anybody got any comments?" And the guy raises his hand, goes like this, and Holtz said, "Yeah." And he said, "Coach, I had a dream last night that we kicked off to Oklahoma and we we ended up sticking the returner and he fumbled and we jumped on the ball. I jumped on the ball and we had it deep in their territory." Lee Holt says, "Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me, son. I don't know how that's going to help with this, but this will go on." And sure enough, it happened that Arkansas was kicking off to Oklahoma, and sure enough, Oklahoma, the returner fumbles, and sure enough, a player, not the player that had the dream, but a player actually recovered the fumble, and the coach or the quarterback Scanlon goes up to Holt says, "Coach, what play do I need to call? What play do I need to call?" And he says, "I don't know. Why don't you bring that guy that just told us about his dream and find out which call we called, what play we called." That's kind of what you're going to have on this. Shelby's going to win this game. I think it could get ugly. To be honest with you, I'm thinking probably I'm going to say 3 to 4 scores.
Yeah, I think you're saying I'm. This is this is Shelby's. This is Shelby's. This is without question. 3 scores, 4 scores. I think you're saying in a big margin. Gosh, I hate to see 4 scores, and I hate to think that it could be 4 scores, and think more in that 2 to 3 score range. But we'll see what happens.
It's this game does kind of concern me. I like having close games in the state
Uh-huh.
championship
But we've
games, but
seen many that are not. So
right,
I've attended quite a few, unfortunately.
same here. I'll never forget one of the first games. In the, I think it was that was the last game in the 2013 season. Mount Creek and Wake Forest. I was hoping Wake Forest would give them a really good fight, and I think the score was something like 59-13 or something crazy like that. I mean, it was just a blowout. And you know what? Wake Forest learned they lost a couple of state championship games, and then they won 3 in a row. So
Exactly.
Wazrose Hill, they've been to the dance, and they will come back. But at the same time, anything's possible. I'm not going to say 100% sure that Shelby's going to win this game. I'm not. I can't give that percentage because anything can happen in this game. You can have a bunch of players get sick, food poison. You can find out right before the kickoff that some of the players are not eligible due to sickness or whatever. But it can be.
The
It
girlfriends
could
could, yeah, half the team's girlfriends could break up with them. I mean, there's lots of things can happen.
exactly right. So
They're teenagers.
now the 7 o'clock game, and this is the one, Dale, that I'm sure if you had to go to one, you probably would go to this one.
Well,
I'm
I'm gonna
prob
try to be there. It just all depends on what my trip does to me. But my plan is to be there. Whether
it's a
plan is able to be fulfilled is another story.
right. So I'm gonna go to the 4A here. We have some really good 4A teams, and the thing I wanted to bring up here, this state championship game between Colonel Gibbons and Chambers. I'm gonna click on Chambers real quick. Let's look at their schedule. Very first beginning game of the season. Look here. Julius Chambers played Colonel Gibbons, beat him 35-29. I was at that game. Uh, After I think it was about a minute left in the second quarter, we just had a torrential downpour. We had a 3 hour delay. That game didn't end until about 1 o'clock in the morning. I left around midnight. And I was exhausted. Dale, I don't know if you remember, it was back when I was dealing with a bunion on my left foot, and I had
Uh-huh.
already been, I think, 8 or 9 miles on my foot, and it was just screaming. So I went on homes before I could as long as so I could drive back. But uh, that game was not nearly as close as that final score was. Chambers pretty much handled Cardinal Gibbons for most of the game. The biggest opponent in that game for Chambers was Julius Chambers. They would make costly turnover or not costly turnovers penalties. They might have turned
Penalty.
the ball over. I can't remember, but it was very beginning of the season. They were sloppy, but when I saw it, I said these guys have a very high ceiling. We probably saw their floor today, and they beat Cardinal Gibbons 35-29. But uh, I want to, everybody thinks about the West when they're thinking 4A football. Let's look at the East real quick because there's a lot of teams that got overlooked. Richmond County, I was telling you about all the teams, the winningest teams since 1960. Richmond County didn't have a football team until 1972, and they're fourth or fifth on the list. It's just
Hmm.
that good of a program.
Yep.
Uh, this game right here, when they lost to Leesville Road, that surprised me. That was a big upset to me. How about you?
Oh no, no question. Because I thought Richmond would be even a contender to be playing this Saturday. That's what I thought about Richmond. So, yeah. In fact, I thought they were the team that was going to be playing on Saturday, if I remember correctly. So,
Right.
yeah, that without question was a shocker in many ways, both in final, um, losing and the final result. The margin of loss just really not what I expected.
Pine Forest, they're they were decent. I didn't expect Middle Creek or Pine Forest to make a deep run. Neither one of did. Nightdale actually had a pretty good run. They beat Middle Creek, then they beat Pine Forest, and then lost to Leesville Road. But I mean, Nightdale's I had not they had a good team, but there was not a team that I thought they were going to make a really deep run into the playoffs.
Right? Nah.
Hillside at that game, and I'm going to tell you right now, that was a coyote ugly game. There was exactly three scores in that whole game, Dale. At halftime, score was 0-0. With 2 minutes left, the score was 0-0. And with 8 minutes left in the game, it was Millbrook 14, Hillside 8. All of the scoring was within like a 5.5 minute window. And ugly, ugly, ugly game. I'm not. I mean, the defenses were good. Millbrook's defense pretty much throttled Hillside, except for a couple plays. Millbrook, their offense would go pretty good, and then all of a sudden they just have a catastrophe. They could not get the snapper could not get the ball to the quarterback or to the punter, or the center could not do the exchange. It was ugly.
Hmm.
And the next week they played Roseville. Roseville beat Newbern. I thought Roseville was going to have a pretty good run in the playoffs. And I decided I was going to go to that Millbrook Roseville game, and I'm glad I did. And I want to tell you what, at halftime it was 28 all. End of regulation it was 48 or 45 all. And Roseville wins 53-4. Or that doesn't
Yeah, I
seem
picked
right.
Millbrook in that game, and
Yeah,
that for me that really kind of, I don't know, surprised me, but it made me really think that Roseville might have good opportunity to keep rolling,
right.
um, beating Millbrook. And
That score doesn't seem right though to me. I thought it was 54-48. They have 53-45. I'm gonna pull this up real quick. I think they might have gotten the scores wrong. Maybe it's just my memory because
yeah, but you're pulling it up from Max Preps, and I think that's where the, well, we'll see, but I think
yeah, it's got
NCAA
53-45
scores.
on here.
Yeah, I thought
Anyway, well,
it was a one score game.
yeah, it was. I just didn't remember. I guess Roswell got the ball first in overtime. Uh, then I went to the next game, which was Leesville Road, who beat Richmond. I knew Leesville Road was legitimate, and I've seen Leesville Road play earlier on the season. I saw them play against Southern Durham, and they held Southern Durham scoreless for most of the game. So I know they had a really good defense, beating Southern Durham and Richmond County. Got to have a good defense. And for most of the game, Leesville, or I'm gonna say to about two and a half quarters of the game, Leesville Road was pretty much in command, and Leesville Road misses a field goal. Uh, they were up at one time 24-14. Roseville scores a touchdown, and then Leesville Road misses a field goal. Roseville scores a touchdown. Leesville Road throws an interception. Roseville scores a touchdown. Roseville went on a 33 to nothing run, and I remember seeing when Leesville Road got to a 24-14 lead. I saw some of the players. I mean, it's typical 16, 17-year-olds to kind of gloat sometimes. And I was thinking, you know what, guys, you're pushing the envelope a little bit. You do not make the choke sign. You don't try to act like you're stabbing them in the heart. There is too much time left with in a 10-point lead. You just don't do that. And Rawls will definitely take care of that. Now on the bottom side here, Dale, Cleveland was a team that I had circled the whole time. How about you?
Yeah, I will admit early I was still kind of questioning how far they could go, but I certainly felt like they would, make it through several rounds, and had an opportunity if they were as good as they were looking that they could be playing certainly regional finals and who knows maybe even uh, on the final Saturday. So early on, they kind of were showing that yeah they were what they were, but then it didn't work out.
This game right here, the Cardinal
Yeah,
Gibbons, this right here probably changed the momentum in the playoffs where Cardinal Gibbons was one of the favorites. I think at this point after the third round, I think Cardinal Gibbons and Leesville Road had the momentum, and Leesville Road obviously they hit Rollsville and lost that momentum the next week or the 2 weeks later. But
I think Cardinal Gibbons showed a great defensive effort there,
right
to be able to hold Cleveland to 21. And yep, yep.
now on the bottom side here, Wake Forest was a team I had circled. So they handled Hope County real easily, and then they lost to Panther Creek. And Dale, you remember? I think it was last year or 2 years ago when Panther Creek just kept on winning game after
Last
game after
year,
game. I think it was last year
last
they beat
year
Cary one time,
they
or beat
they
where did they beat Olympic? Right?
they beat Olympic, and then they lost to Myers Park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And they had a pretty good run. They
third
got to the
round.
fourth round
Yeah,
and
yeah.
lost to Cardinal Gibbons. So Cardinal Gibbons, they're representing the East. Now let's look at the West here. Huff, number one seed. They played Page. I mean, how many times are you going to see Page the very last seed in the playoffs? Just don't see that happen.
Yeah, no, no.
They beat Page. They beat this South Meck 42-7.
I was at that game.
And that was pretty ugly, pretty fast, wasn't it?
It was. You know what? I can't remember the last time I left a game at halftime. I left that game at halftime. I usually stick around regardless, but it was just so ugly.
Right.
It just was not fun to watch, and so it's hard to watch a game that's not got any hope of having enjoyment in it. Any moments of enjoyment. So yeah, that was an ugly game.
Now, talking about ugly games here or surprises, Mauer Creek beating Butler 29-8. That surprised me.
That
I thought Butler would win the game, and I didn't think Mauer Creek would beat Butler by 3 touchdowns if they did win.
I think that surprised a lot of people because there was around these parts there was a lot of thought that Butler was a better team um, than that. Uh, the Southwestern 4A is just not. I don't know. They just haven't had it lately. And Mallard Creek, while having I guess a season that doesn't match what most people expect out of the Mallard Creek, They still have gas in their tank. They still have a good bit of gas in their tank. So it turned out to be not just a win, but a big win. And then I think their next, I think for Mallard Creek, their win the next week was big too,
Right.
because they had to go on the road for that win. And I mean, when I say on, well, I should rephrase that. They had to go on the road to Asheville, which is not the same as going on the road to Matthews and playing Butler, a team that they have played many times. And the environments are different, just totally different environments.
Right.
So commit. So you got to give. If you're going to give some early, playoff awards, you got to give one to Mallard Creek for being able to make it that far and not getting totally manhandled by Huff.
Right. 31-17 is a very respectful score
Yes. Uh huh.
against a team was Huff. I mean, top to bottom in execution, athleticism, everything. I think you can make an argument they're the best one in the state.
I think you could say from a athlete, athlete point of view, certainly. Um, Execution plays into there's a lot of factors with execution.
Right. You're right about that.
So, and those factors didn't play out as we saw last Friday night. So,
That game got ugly really fast, didn't it? Or not really fast. It took a long time for that game to get ugly.
well, the thing about that game is, and something you have to take away from that game is that Huff had everything going for them, and or almost everything it seemed like, and Chambers did not. But Chambers did not fold. Chambers did not. They just kept doing their thing as if it's going to happen. If we just keep doing what we have to do, it's going to happen. And I don't know that I was listening to the because I was able to watch the second half of that game, and I kept up with the first half in through some texting that Mr. Bumgarner was sending to me. And anyway, as you watched in the second half, Jim, I know you were at a game. Uh, I'm not going to say like the announcers that they felt like Huff was letting the foot off of the gas and trying to coast to a victory. But what I did see happen is that even early in that second half, things were going Huff's way, not Chambers' way. And just as soon as Chambers got a break and made something happen, Huff crumbled. They crumbled in that game. There's no other way you can define it. And this, we mentioned before we started that we talk about that hump thing, and the takeaway from that game is Chambers could get into any, they're like a boxer that gets, put into the corner, and he's taking all kind of punches, but he doesn't go down. And you can just tell that if that boxer gets his feet right and he gets one punch in, one punch that he's going to swing things. And now, as we saw it happen, I mean, Jim, I don't mean to belabor it, but that's exactly, it was a whole momentum. It wasn't just momentum. Momentum definitely shifted. It was how the two teams handled momentum when it was against them. And
Right.
Chambers did a much better job as a team handling the momentum when it was against them than Huff did. It got ugly there at the end of the game. It just so what's really, I don't want to say funny, Jim, but if you remember, my pick was for 2-score win for Chambers, and that was not how I expected two scores to come about, but it still got fulfilled.
That's wild. I mean, it's not how you drive, but how you arrive sometimes. Yeah,
Um,
Butler obviously was a team that I thought they would. I was looking forward to a potential Butler Huff match. Didn't happen. And the one thing I was kind of thought that was going to happen. I know Glenn had a very close game against Providence, beat them 7-3. Good defensive match, and then talking about a great offensive match, Glenn beats Myers
Hmm.
Park 54-53.
Yeah.
I was kind of looking forward to the battle of Kernersville, and it did actually happen. Myers Park, of course, beat Mooresville 44-26. East Forsyth, they beat, is that Southeast Guilford, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's, uh,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
if I
Southeast
remember,
Guilford,
that's
yeah.
what it was. Yeah.
And then Ardrey Kell beat Northwest Guilford 62-7. This game right here, I thought was going to be a lot closer. I think
So
I
did
picked
I.
Ardrey Kell to win that game, and East Forsyth won it. And so I was a little bit shocked. I thought Glenn would possibly be the stronger team until Ardrey Kell beat our East Forsyth beat Ardrey Kell 17-0. I picked we both picked East Forsyth to beat Glenn in the Battle of Kernersville.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, East Forsyth, I was like, you know what, they could give Huff a game if Huff played ugly, and Huff played, good enough to win 126-14.
Well, Huff,
Um,
that game did what was happening with Huff in the that game and the previous game is that they were starting out slow, and
right.
they did start out slow in that game, as I remember. I think it seems like it was 7-6. It might even been 7-6 the other way, but I remember that game was very very close in the first half, and Huff pulled it out in that was a second half win for them and a very good second half for them. So what does it say?
Looking on the bottom half of the West, the bottom half of the West was just loaded just like the top half. Weddington, first they've been 3A for many years, and they go to 4A.
Hmm.
Marvin Ridge beat Charlotte Catholic the very first week of the season, our first playoff week. I was a little bit surprised. I thought Catholic was going to win that game. I knew that Marvin Ridge was going to give them a fight though, and they did. They beat them. Uh, yeah, I know you were big on Cuthbertson earlier on. I was,
Well, yeah, I was. Yeah, because I got to see them play early in the season.
and they had a good run. They got to the third round.
They did have a good run, and if you look at that, and you look at Weddington, the conference and former conference foes that are all up in that group there together, because Catholic was in conference with them last season, not this season, but uh, what an interesting top half of that bracket
Oh
was.
yeah, exactly. Because Marvin Ridge was a 3A school.
Yeah, they were all
Catholic
in
was
the,
3A. Weddington was 3A. Cuthbertson was 3A.
and all of them were in conference together.
Yeah, I
So
mean it's just
last
a
year,
great.
yeah,
Yeah, and then you got Lake Norman who beat I think it was Northern Guilford. So Cuthbertson beats Lake Norman, and Weddington they played good enough to beat Cuthbertson. Then you get down to the bottom part, Hickory Ridge. I knew that they had a decent team, but I did not think they had much to hold against Chambers. And Chris asked us, well, he's had a lot of people ask him why it used to be Zebulon Vance, why they changed it to Julius Chambers. And Dale, I'll give you my 2 cents, or you can give your 2 cents.
go ahead.
It had a lot of,
We both say the same thing, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Zebulon Vance is a governor, former governor, during the I guess it was 1850s or 1860s. It was around close to the Civil War period time. And well, you know what? Just for the heck of it, let's pull it up here. Let's pull up Zeb Vance here.
That area, by the way, was with the middle school and all was governors. You had James Martin right there. It was, and I think the elementary school, even in that area, might be named after a former governor as well. So they were
So he was
all governors. I forget what it was called, governor's circle or something like that.
so he was governor twice. He was U.S. senator. He was governor during the Civil War, and he was a young man too. He was born in 1830. and he was governor by the age of 32, and he was senator, and he died 64 years old, or not even quite 64, 63 when he died. That's a young age. And the thing about it, Dale, I'll mention this. I don't like having anything named after mere mortals. I
I
know.
I'm gonna tell you what. We're opening a new high school in my part of the city, and my oldest daughter is on the naming committee, and I had suggested Steel Creek High School, and I just saw a message from her earlier that they can't name they can't use names that have already been used, and there used to be a Steel Creek High School, and somebody had suggested a person's name, and uh, from what we've seen here with what happened with Vance and the move to rename the school because of past history, we should probably never name any school after a human because who knows what's going to happen in the future. Just name it after the landmarks of the area versus a person. I get the reason for doing it, but humans do things that you don't know about maybe until you learn later, or people's ideas on things change, and the next thing you know, you're renaming a school. So,
Well, we
um,
can we can go through some here. Let's see here. Terry Sanford High School used to be Fayetteville High School. Trying to
mhm,
go down here a little bit. Brawl over in Raleigh. Let's
yeah.
see. Max Gardner is that's at UNC. Ehringhaus Dorm, that's at UNC. Um, I'm surprised Car Scott. There's a Car Scott building in Raleigh, I believe. Let's go on down. Cameron Morrison Dorm over at UNC.
Oh gosh, I'm just when you just mentioned that, I got to thinking about Carter Finley's named after people.
Then
Not
you
that
got
any, not that anything bad's come up yet, but
you got
we do
Vance.
name a lot of things after people, and there's good reasons in some cases. Um,
Vance, it was an interesting fellow though. I've read up a little bit about him. He was not what I'd call a horrible individual. He was not. He actually did want to reconcile North,
well,
and
you do understand or know, if you know your history, you know that North Carolina did not enter the Confederacy until what happened at Sumter. Um, because as a state, we were about 50-50 in in belief of whether we should join the Confederacy. So to reconcile with after is not a surprise, knowing the state of the state, if you will, going into the war.
right.
So,
But yeah, I guess what I was saying though is it wasn't like Zebulon Vance was as horrible as a lot of the other politicians during that reign. That being
right.
said, I don't know exactly why he was actually named. The school was named after him in the first place. Let's say he was born in Weaverville, North Carolina, which is in Buncombe. Is that correct? Yeah,
I,
Buncombe. I think
yeah,
it's where North Buncombe High School is.
I can't say why he was selected. I know that the schools there in that area are named after governors. And I'm talking about the CMS schools right there around that fed Vance. They were all named after governors. So
Right.
um, they decide there was a decision made to name them after governors. Why this particular governor was selected, I don't know. Martin was selected for the middle school. I think it is. I've got that right. So
The one thing I tell people though is he was yes he was a Confederate. I think he was a military uh, leader also for the Confederacy. The one thing I tell people though is that be very careful if your family is ever honored like that. because history has a way to come back and bite you. I'm sure there's going to be some things that the school names right now we're going to change eventually because they find out some type of horrible thing. Can you imagine if something like a school called Jerry Sandusky High School or Bill Cosby High School uh,
uh,
or Jeffrey Epstein High School? I mean, so I mean
so
that would be awful.
yeah, so the good thing for those three that you just mentioned is that typically that's not done until someone is passed.
Right.
So what saves it there is that we don't have people that have passed.
Well,
But your point is very valid.
let's say Jim Hunt. We have Wilson Hunt, James B. Hunt High School in Wilson was built in
Hmm.
'78. I think it opened up in '78, and I like Jim Hunt. My dad worked for Hunt. I met Hunt when I was in, I think, between kindergarten and first grade, and shook his hand. And this was back in like '77. In 2000, I think it was 2007. Hunt was actually working, or was at where I was working at the time, a pharmaceutical company called Azi. And my dad said, "Jim, you remember the time you met Jim Hunt when you were a kid?" And I said, "Yeah." I shook his hand. And he said, "Well, your mother doesn't remember it." And I said, "Well, tell her she's in good company." When I told Governor Hunt about that, he didn't remember it either. So
Yeah,
I guess what I'm saying is, if something bad happened to Hunt, so let's say that they found out that he ended up, trafficking giraffe meat or something like that, or something.
right.
I'm making something up. Uh, that's going to be very hard against his family, against anybody, his kids, grandkids, you name it. So be very careful about naming things after people. I'm very against that. I'm all for directions now. All right, I'm done with about talking about Julius Chambers' part here. Here's a Ronald Reagan High School talking about names here. Uh, Reagan lost to Porter Ridge 27-21. I wasn't that surprised by it, but I was surprised that Grimsley, who won a state championship after they beat Cox Mill, I thought they'd handle Porter Ridge.
Yeah,
Porter
that didn't
Ridge
surprise me.
did it not.
No, don't you remember we had the discussion about that? And um, I said I wouldn't be surprised that they win um, because of when you talk about a Porter Ridge, you're talking. They've been there
Yeah,
as a one. And the reason they've been there and why they did well here is that they're the same kind of a program as Weddington is. They're the same kind of a program as a Catholic is.
very disciplined.
They're highly disciplined, and the thing is that these programs come out of Union County's got an exceptional youth football program. So these kids learn football properly. They learn it at a young age, so their football IQ is very high. On the field, they know what they're supposed to do, and they do it. And they may not always have the fastest and best athletes, but because they know what to do on the field, they're always in position. Um, and that with good coaching, just it yields these kind of results. So, no, I'm not surprised. I was not surprised at the win. They certainly were not the favorite going
Right.
in on paper, but to win that ball game was not a surprise.
Gotcha. So you had some really good teams on that. And Chambers, they ended up beating Porter Ridge in the third round. And Chambers, they tore up Weddington 45-14. And to me,
I was at the game.
that was a
As
big statement win right there.
That was a huge statement win for in many regards, not just the score, but how they did it, and the how part being that Chambers' biggest enemy this year has been their penalties,
Right.
and it wasn't just in that Cardinal Gibbons game. It was in the first Huff encounter where they lost. They've seen this be a problem, but they've been good enough to overcome it in most situations. And in this particular game, the Weddington game, um, they didn't have as many of those problems. And you don't expect a smash mouth team like Weddington to get smashed in the mouth. And man, Jim, just the way that Chambers came out with their speed on defensive line, um, and their speed of their offensive line, but that speed of the defensive line, it was just they were able to smash a mouth and then get to where they needed to get to.
Right.
And so that win, I cannot say how impressive that win was. Uh, I expected them to win, but how impressive. One of the officials turned to me late in the third quarter, uh, side official, side judge, and he looked at me and said, "Did you expect this?" Like, no, I thought if Chambers had some of their issues that they can have, and Weddington played at the top of their game, they could put themselves into opportunity to win, but they had to have a lot of things go right. And he's like, it didn't look like anything went right. So, what a game that was for Chambers. What a game.
So Chambers, they started out as a number 10 seed, so they had to win on the road against Hickory Ridge. Had to go on the actually they hosted Porter Ridge.
They got to
Okay,
host Porter Ridge. They won a home game, and then they had to
yeah,
go back on the road. See, that's the other thing. They were on the road at Weddington. It just that was I can't tell you, man,
that's yeah,
how
that's
impressive
crazy.
that was. That was highly impressive.
And
Not to
then
say that their performance against Huff was not impressive, because it was.
Dale, are you a baseball fan at all?
Not as much as I used to be. I played.
Okay,
I played up until my teen years, and I used to, be one of those that would look, because we had to do things either by catching something on radio mostly, or paper. You're looking at box scores every
right.
morning to see, and so yeah, but not as much anymore.
You remember there were a lot of people think about the 1986 New York Mets, how they were on the cusp of defeats, and basically the Red Sox basically handed them the game. I mean, there was
Hmm.
a lot of bad decisions by manager McNamara. But the thing I always remember about it was the year before '85. Uh, the St. Louis Cardinals were up 3 games to 2. They were playing the Kansas City Royals, and the only thing they had to do was throw the ball to I think it was went from Tommy Herr from second base over to Jack Clark at first base, and the umpire blew it. The guy was out, and he called him safe. And then after that, the Cardinals just ended up just imploding. And
Yep.
then the next week or the next game, they had Joaquin Andahar as their starter. No, actually not him. He actually came off the bench. He was started out with John Tudor, and Tudor is a control freak. I mean, he could locate any pitch he wanted to, and he walked like three, 4, 5 players, and they took him out, and Waddy was pretty mad anyway because of the game beforehand, and he threw in Joaquin Andahar, who's very temperamental, and after about 2 batters, Joaquin just loses it, charges the umpire, and anyway, the Cardinals lose 11-0, and it was basically seeing a whole team have a nervous breakdown
Yep.
after a bad call. Have you ever seen that on a football field in high school before? I have. I won't mention any names, but I have on that. When I kept on seeing those scores, where it was like 2 minutes left, Julius Chambers scores to tie the game, and then they score another touchdown like within a minute or so, and then there was another one within just seconds. I was wondering, is somebody having a nervous breakdown? Tell me your spin. Am I how far am I off on that one?
See, I was following baseball back then, and that was that was an implosion like none other. And This one, as I mentioned earlier, Jim, to see the confidence that didn't let you let momentum when it went against you get you down, and then to watch the other team let just a little bit of momentum drive them down. And you can say this bad break or that bad break, but that's not what I saw. I saw an implosion occur, and I can't say it's on the same level as what you just described for people who may not be old enough to remember, but it was not far off. Um, so I don't. That was Jim. Just it shocked me, to be quite truthful with you. It really shocked me, and it's a testament to when people talk about getting over the hump. The people that have to get over the hump are the coaches, because the players graduate.
Right.
We had some. There was some discussion in our talking preps uh, text thing afterwards, and I forget exactly what I said, but there was a thing about the players getting nervous and all that other stuff, and they have to learn from experience. And while I agree with that, um, the confidence that kept Chambers from imploding when things were down against them. I'm gonna tell you what I'll tell you how I relate it. There's two instances that happened to Independence,
I was looking at that. Isn't
and
that pretty cool? Look at that. I'm sorry.
the Independence was playing Providence at Independence, and Providence got up 21-0. And Providence actually almost won that game. If they had made that field goal there at the end of the ball game, they would have won it, and they would have broken that Independence streak. And then there was the Butler game later in the season at Memorial Stadium, where we saw a similar thing happen in the first half. And in both of those games, Independence never flinched when they were just getting, everything's going against them. They're down bukus of scores, bukus of points. They never flinched. They didn't start crying or, dropping their head. They just were like, they were businesslike about, we're just going to do what we got to do and things are going to come back around. Now, that's true confidence.
Right.
There's a difference in confidence and cockiness. And there's that getting over the hump stuff is stuff that takes place not by losing one game and learning how to overcome that, or even losing two games. It comes from what you do in the summer. It comes from what you do in the fall in practice. It comes from what you're taught by your coaches every day at practice on how you handle things. Um, it's a pounded in thing, if you get what I'm saying.
Right.
And so coaches have to learn in these losses what they have to do. That's not just a one game thing to keep it from happening again, that this is something I have to implement into my program, into my mindset, into my culture, so that I can get over that hump. So I'm one that believes getting over the humps a lot more than, well, you learn how to handle one loss like that loss there. So I don't know if that applies with Huff here, but as a squad, as a program, they imploded there at the end of the
Right.
ball, and that's something that they're going to have to learn how to put the foot on the throat in the case in that particular situation, and crank up the scores, not give up scores, but not be
Right.
cocky about it.
I agree with you.
So man, really makes you think what are we going to see this Saturday in game,
So
right?
exactly, and I do have some people say, well, you got a baseline. I say, well, it's a baseline that's probably on quicksand because what happened on August 20th, both teams were improved since August 20th. We all know that. I saw a Julius Chambers team that probably saw them on their basements,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew looking at their talent, they had a high ceiling. I saw Cardinal Gibbons that had was probably closer to the basement than to their ceiling. Also, I saw that part. I also saw how games are called. And in that first game between Chambers and Cardinal Gibbons, the Chambers quarterback was thrown out with about a minute left in the second quarter, over nothing, over nothing whatsoever. I think a referee lost his temper and
Mm-hmm.
tossed him. And the same thing happened to one of the Julius Chambers assistants. He said something on the sideline that wasn't directed to anybody. The official heard him and tossed him. I think sometimes you can see how games are called, and most of the time when people say the refs are biased, I kind of just dismiss it. That game there was some bias on that. You could see the bias on that. I don't know if the referees were intimidated by the Cardinal Gibbons fans, or if they wanted to send a message to Julius Chambers. But what I saw though was
Mm-hmm.
something that was an unfair advantage, and that was probably one of the worst things I've seen. One of the worst refereeing games I've seen ever. I'll be free to admit to that, and I don't have a in the stable in this one. But you throw all that stuff in here, you see what's happened since then. Both teams have had good seasons. Cardinal Gibbons has had a couple of hiccups during the season. They have two games that they have lost this year. Let's pull up their stats. Everybody wants to talk about Julius Chambers having hiccups. We need to also talk about Cardinal Gibbons having some hang-ups here, hiccups. Let me go to the schedule here.
So I'm looking here to see what these last two
They
comments
lost
are.
to they lost to Myers Park 16-13. Myers Park didn't really have that great of a season this year. I mean, they were good, but they weren't like they have been the last several years.
Underachieved.
Exactly right.
They underachieved. There's no
But
question.
big thing was here when Cardinal Gibbons beat Richmond 30-22. That was a pretty big statement on that. Then you get into the conference. They did pretty good at conference. They beat Leesville Road 13-3. That's an impressive win. Uh, then they got into the playoffs. But looking at everything on that, Cardinal Gibbons has a well of a team. I'm taking Julius Chambers. I don't think it's going to necessarily be as close as the 35-29 score was last time. I'm surprised if Cardinal Gibbons scores 29 points. I think it's more like 20 points. And I think Chambers will score at least 35. I almost say 38-20 Chambers final.
Yeah, I can see it.
Hate to say this, Dale, but none of the championship games are going. From looking at it, I don't think any of them are going to be that darn close. Maybe the 1A between Mitchell and Tarboro.
Yeah, I was just thinking Mitchell. If Mitchell can keep the magic going, um, they can make a game of it. So, what is VARK I'm seeing a post here in our chat. I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
VARK.tech from Aubrey Waters.
Virginia.
I don't know. I mean, the first thing I thought about was Virginia Tech, but I don't know. VA could be Virginia Tech, and I don't know what RK is, but
Oh,
VOIFY.
Vark Doc Tech is a deep dive. I'm looking at something here. I just there is some of a guide to learning styles. I don't know exactly what. Maybe we have no style, Dale. Maybe that's the message we're getting. I don't know.
VARK Tech. Let me look that up. You saying there's something about that actually?
Yeah.
There is. There's a video of Art Tech deep
There's
dive.
VOI technology.
This is very disturbing crap, but luckily I blocked everything. I don't know. It could be just a spam thing too.
Yeah, I have no idea.
This
But
stuff,
anyway,
that stuff happens on YouTube, unfortunately. If they don't like our style, that's tough. I don't care.
we have no style. You know,
Exactly.
an album roll there was a group called the No Class Club, and
What is VOI?
I saw VOI. There was something Swedish. It's a
VOI is
Swedish
not
urban
FYI.
mobility company.
Okay, so maybe we're getting some other people to watch us. That who knows where they're coming from? It doesn't say where it comes. Yeah, it does. Those came from YouTube. See the little
Okay,
YouTube thing there.
that's awesome.
So the other stuff came from Facebook. Those two came from YouTube.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay.
So Dale, I think I'm going to go to the Chapel Hill games. I'm not exactly sure to if I'm going to go to Raleigh or not. It depends on how I feel. If the weather comes in earlier than the evening, I
Mhm.
probably won't go to Raleigh. If it's raining at night, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to be in Raleigh because I hate driving at night in the rain.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how my trip goes coming back. How I feel. Uh, it's a lot of driving time for me
Yeah.
to see how things go for Saturday. So, okay, VOY. How you doing there, Fitzy Cloette?
Yeah. Talk to us. Talk to us.
Talk to us. We have no idea what you're trying to say. Cheryl Turner.
VOYFY.
Cheryl Turner. Probably fake names, all of them.
Yeah.
We get good content from Facebook, and we get this stuff from YouTube. I don't. We get all these good comments from Facebook, and what we get from YouTube is a bunch of junk.
Type in voici. That's French for there is or here it is. I think voila is it voila is here is
Voila,
and
voila.
voici is there is.
Je parle un petit français.
Yeah. Je m'appelle français.
So I
My name is French. No, so it's Jim Appel. My name
je
is, and then
m'appelle, je m'appelle.
Jim
Because I've
Appel
been telling
Jim.
people this week, I answer the phone and I'm getting these scam calls with Spanish speakers now, and I do my own form of scam baiting, and with them I've gone I say hello, 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 and they say something more in Spanish. I say je m'appelle Jean, comment s'appelles-tu? So I tell them when I was in school, we had to have a French name.
Yeah, I did too. I was Jock.
So I was Jean, 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 which is
Jean. Okay. Yeah, I was.
French for John. It's what my teacher told me. So je m'appelle Jean. Comment s'appelles-tu? They they hang up. So I got one today, and I asked her. I said, "Can you speak?" And she started speaking in English, and I said, "Oh, okay. Do you speak Pig Latin? Because I'm gonna talk to you in Pig Latin." She hung up.
See, I took French in high school and I took Spanish in college. And it was nothing worse than when your Spanish teacher asks you how you doing. You say, "Come see, come saw."
Come
When
see,
you're
come
supposed to say
sa.
"Aussie," when you're supposed to say "Aussie,
Come
Aussie,"
sa.
and
And your Spanish teacher is like,
yeah,
huh?
I had a see, I was a mathematical science major, and we had to take 4 semesters of foreign language because of where mathematics. At UNC Chapel Hill back then, you had to take 4 semesters of foreign language and 1 semester of math, or 2 semesters of math and 3 semesters of foreign language. The only exceptions are all math majors have to take 4 semesters of foreign language, and all foreign language majors have to take 2 semesters of math. So we hated each other. And so I only took one class pass fail my whole career at UNC, and happened to be Spanish 4. So I didn't really care what the teacher thought. I just want to do good enough to make a D, which I think I
Right.
made a D. I'd be surprised if I made anything higher than a D. But I hated that class. I just despised that class.
I kind of wish I now had taken Spanish. I took French because my uncle, uh, he had a doctorate in French. He actually, his last job was director of foreign languages of Durham County Schools. Um,
Okay.
he So I took French because of that, and because French, French is one of the international languages used for business, and so there's actually more benefit maybe to taking it, but that didn't mean anything to me. And in fact, now for me for business, if anything, I need Japanese. But interesting. I've been having fun with the scammers, so I'm trying to amp my scam baiting game up, and
See,
now I'm getting all these Spanish callers.
oh, here's one for you, Dale. You know why I took French in high school? You
Don't
have
know.
any idea?
A
I went to
girl?
North Stanley
I don't know.
because that's the only foreign language they offered at North Stanley back in the 80s was French. They didn't offer
Oh, okay.
Spanish, didn't offer anything else.
Right.
And you go to Albemarle High School, and I think they had French and Spanish. And
Yeah, we had
that's one
French.
reason. That's one reason why a lot of the people in the county always hated the city schools. They were better than us. It is true. I mean, it's just they were better funded. But so I go to Carolina. At first semester in Spanish, I got an A. The second semester, I got A minus. Third semester, I got a B plus. And then I just didn't care. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when you have when you're trying to get a good GPA, you want to do good in all your classes. But if you have a class that your GPA doesn't matter, the only thing that matters is that you pass. You could care less. You're going to do the minimum efforts. And that's the first time in my whole academic career that I did the minimum efforts to pass.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I'm sorry. The that last one that was posted in VOY.FYI. That's a spam thing too. It looks like
Uh,
they need to be. They're comment bots that are putting these in. I don't know why they don't. There's no link or anything. I don't know why they would do it.
so, Dale, what I want to do eventually, maybe during the holiday break, I'm gonna try to do when I've. It's kind of funny after you get through with Christmas and before New Year's, there's a lull, and we all know that. That's why we have college football and some pro sports. But there's a lot of free time. It's a lot of times it's too cold to do anything outside. I'm gonna come up with a realignment that's based on three classifications and all the things we could do if we'd have no split conferences, and you could have six state champions. You could subdivide each one of the.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you went to three classifications, then you would probably want to subdivide for state championships.
oh, definitely.
The
The good thing,
question, yeah, do that. I mean, it'll be an interesting thing to discuss because I don't know. That's well, let's see what you come up with.
because
I don't want to make any comments until then.
there's two things I want to do. I want to avoid split conferences. So
Me
you're gonna
too. I don't.
have
I'm split conferences are my number one pet peeve. So yeah,
so you're gonna
I'm with.
have you're gonna have the small 1As. You're gonna have the average size schools, which are gonna be your 2As, and then you have your big size, mostly going to be Mecklenburg County, Wake County, some of the triad schools, 3As. You might have some in the mountains like Asheville. You might have some east like Greenville, Wilmington, New Bern. But most of them are going to be pretty much concentrated in certain areas. You might have a team like McDowell County that's or South Caldwell that's just kind of out there. But I want to do that because honestly, I don't like this realignment for one reason only is all these split conferences. More chance than not, you're going to be in a split conference. There's more teams in a split conference than they are in a true conference, like a true 1A or true 2A conference.
Yeah, it's always been my number one hate is split conferences. So
And
anything we could do to do away with them is without question. Oh,
and
something
the,
I'm in favor of.
and the thing about it is with this realignment, it's going to be for football only. The other schools like basketball, baseball, they
Yeah,
can
I
do whatever
don't
they want
know.
to.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I can tell you I'm not sure how much I could support that. And the reason being is I think rivalries, as much as they can carry across other sports, should be there.
Right.
And part of rivalry is you beat me in football, but I can beat you in basketball.
Oh yeah.
You're a conference champion in football. I'm a conference champion in baseball. That kind of stuff. And by having different alignments for the different sports would eliminate that.
The reason,
Conference champion of football, or I'm the conference champion in all three, the major sports, or there's
right.
just there's just things about that that I like.
The only reason I wanted to do with football differently is I like having bigger. I like having. I'm not against having bigger geographical conferences if it's football only. If it's like tennis or something like that, I'd hate to see girls tennis or boys tennis have to drive 2 hours to play a
Well,
to play.
worse than that is having basketball, because basketball is an
At,
all day thing for teams typically, because you
at
got your
winter.
girls and your boys, and and then they, because of the things that can happen in basketball games, in the previous games to the final varsity game that evening, you can be out late, and if you've got then a big travel, to get back home, because of geography, so big that it really makes for bad. Gosh, maybe kids getting in after midnight and then having to get up and be at school the next morning.
Right.
So for basketball, that's really, I agree, it's not a good thing. Football can handle it because they're Friday games, but the
Right.
exceptions are the Thursday JV games. But
And that's another thing with the JVs. Let them play in the regular the regular traditional conferences. I'm fine with that. Uh,
yeah, I think that's for the same reasons I just mentioned.
yeah.
Um, it's there's a lot to be said for playing a team when you're a JV player, and then playing that same team and players, when you're a varsity player. You develop certain animosity, maybe is one way to
Right.
put it, which for the team that gets beaten, as JV players, and maybe they have that renewed motivation as they become varsity players. I'm just going based on
Yeah. Sure.
my experiences with both with myself, and then with my children that played.
Right.
Um,
Right.
it does what you do in JV and your opponents does carry into varsity in many
Sure.
manners. So I like that, having the varsity team play the same schedule,
Mm,
and I know that stuff changes if alignment happens in the middle of your 4 year stint in high school, and you get put into another conference, you lose what I just mentioned, but still there's I don't know. I have a hard time not having the varsity and JV play the same schedule.
right.
I
Right. The the one thing that I like in the past, back in the '60s, you'd have these big conferences. You'd have Raleigh playing teams all the way down to Wilmington, Goldsboro. I mean, they had these huge, huge size conferences. Fayetteville. Could you imagine teams in Wake County, in Cumberland? over in Goldsboro, Wayne County, Rocky Mount, you name it. Rocky Mountains and Broughton was in the same conference at one time. Those I like having that. That was some fun games back then. And
Of
back then
course,
they didn't care about traveling as much.
well, that's because they didn't have a lot of opportunity to do
Right,
other. You got to remember our population and number of high schools that we had. That now we have such a larger number of high schools that we can cut that geography down some. Um, the need to have large conference that covers that much
right.
mileage.
The thing I was talking about the big conferences though, uh, for football only, it has more to do with having getting away from the split conferences. For some reason, football and split conferences irked me a lot more than like cross country or tennis or golf. Basketball, I'm not a big fan of split conferences either, to be honest with you. But football, with just the sheer numbers, you don't want to have a big 3A school in the same conference as small 2A. You
Right.
definitely
No,
don't want to have Shelby, who's a giant in 2A football, being a 1A, 2A conference like they are now.
I think it's a lot more impactful in football than it is basketball.
Right,
No doubt. In I can hear the arguments. Yeah, but in basketball, you don't have as many players to pick from, just like in football, and thus you don't have as many potential athletes again. And I can see that, but it just to me it seems like it's a bigger problem with it being
right,
with football. I
right.
could agree. Um,
So I'm gonna play around with it and
and
see what will come up.
play around with one with five
I
classifications.
have in the past, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if you unless you like having a conference, several conferences like a 1A, 2A, 3A split conference or a 3A, 4A, 5A split conference, you want to stay away from five classifications. Just trust me on that. We've actually had a 1A, 2A, 3A conference before. Did you know that?
Not all three classifications. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Let me put on my glasses here. I want to show you this one. It is the ugliest realignment ever. It was back in the early '90s, early or mid '90s. I'm gonna go on the NCHSA website and I'm gonna share my screen with you. And let's type in realignment here.
Well, I had me a Jersey Mike's 13 tonight.
Ooh, that
That's that's
sounds good.
my favorite sub. Jersey
All
Mike's
right.
my favorite sandwich.
I had Subway today.
I didn't eat lunch today, so that was my lunch.
Archive
That's
realignments.
Brendan.
So I got here. They used to have the 2000. Just say the 2013 and 2017. Let me see if I can find 1993, 97 realignment. If anything pops up, conferences. That's the one I'm looking for here. Archive conferences. I'm gonna look at the 97, 98 on here. Here it is. This is the ugly one. This is a 1A, 2A, 3A conferences. 1A North Side over in Beaufort County. Perquimans over in Hertford County. I was going to be that Perquimans County is in Hertford. Not my fault. Hertford County is a Hosky in Murfreesboro. And you got Williamston. Those are your three 1A schools. Plymouth back then was a 2A school. Eames was 2A and Currituck was 2A. Manteo was the lone 3A school. That is ugly.
Mm.
And that happened until, let's see, I think 2001 is when Manteo dropped down to, I think they went from 3A to 2A. Let me check here. Okay, they were still 3A here. You see the Northeastern Coastal, Currituck, Holmes, Northeastern, and Pasquotank. Pasquotank was a new school. Northeastern used to be a big 3A school. Now they're a 2A. Then you had Bertie, Manteo, and Hertford County. And then by conference, I was going to say maybe 2005, Manteo was a 1A school, I believe. Let's see here if I can find them on here. Here it is, Albemarle Conference. You got Camden, Cape Hatteras, Columbia, Crestville, Gates, Manteo, and Perquimans. And for some reason, Plymouth was with Mattamuskeet, Janesville, Northside, Williamston, Southside, Roanoke. Some ugly, ugly conferences. Now this is back when I think this the 3A, 4A when what year was Olympic in 3A? This
2005 through 2000, what would that be? Eight,
there you
five,
go.
6, 7, 8, yeah, something like that.
So you had 3A schools were Olympic, Catholic, and Waddell, and the 4A schools Berry Academy, Garinger, Harding, and West Mac. What's interesting is 4 years later, Berry Academy was in a 2A conference. They were in the Rocky River Conference. They went from
Yeah.
4A to 2A. So
Well, they didn't go from 4A to 2A. They went to where they were supposed to be because
really,
they were 2A size when they were 4A there. So
gotcha.
it's one of the things we didn't understand in that the NCHSAA put Olympic at 3A, and we showed and proved that the numbers would be, back to 4A numbers within uh, 2 years, and that would have been by the time that we were into the second year of alignment, going into the second year of the new alignment, and they wouldn't listen to it. But yet because Barry back then, Jim, was really more about being a basketball
Right.
potential power, and they wanted to play for a basketball. So they lobbied and won, and they got the support of CMS to push them to be a 4A school, and then finally they got aligned where they belonged, which was at 2A. So that's why that happened.
Now here's one for you. This is the 1969 realignment. This is the 1A. Look at Apex. Where are they now? They're a 4A school. Back then they
Yeah.
were 1A. But look at this conference right here. Angier and Lillington, they are part of Harnett County. Angier, I think that's Harnett Central. Lillington is Western, or excuse me, yeah, Harnett Central, and then Western Harnett's where Lillington is. Clarkton and Tar Heel consolidated. I don't even see Tar Heel in here. They consolidated to make West Bladen. Orem, Maxim, those teams are gone. Boone Trail gone. Coates gone. Coates, Irwin, and Dunn consolidated to make Triton. It was wild seeing all these small teams here. Acme, Delco, you remember that school? Gone. Midway, North Duplin are still around. Here, Rosman's around. Andres, Cherokee, Hayesville, Robbinsville. Well, luckily, all four of those are still there. It's gone. Aiden's gone. Aiden, and then there was Grifton High School over here in the Tobacco Belt. Now they're Aiden
Yeah.
Grifton.
Needing Grifton, yeah.
Aurora left in '86. Bath left in I think the late '80s. Bellhaven late '80s. Chocowinity late '80s. Elm City, I think that's part of Hunt High School now. Farm Life, that's over in Vanceboro. That's West Craven. Grifton's gone. Mattamuskeet, they're still around. Saratoga, that's part of Wilson. It's either Hunt or Bedingfield, one of those schools. And then Robertsonville later on became Roanoke High School, and now they're South Creek High School. There's that school has been that's in its second consolidation, and South Creek and Riverside are going to eventually consolidate to make Martin County High School. But anyway, well, Dale, you got anything you want to talk? I've been blabbing a lot.
No, I'm I'm a little tired.
I understand. Well, Well, Dale, thank you so much. When do you want to do another show? You think you'll wait until maybe the beginning of next year?
I don't know. We can. It's up to you. Um,
Maybe next week.
we might could do something next week. I got nothing against doing something next week. Um,
Okay.
maybe we can talk about what happened this weekend, and I don't know. Maybe we might could talk about some other sport, basketball or something,
Yeah, that sounds good.
or to try to we should try to find some basketball people. There you go. So we'll see what happens this weekend, and we'll certainly talk about the state championship. See how we did. See how we if those we picked
I'm
if they won or not.
I'm gonna predict West 3, East 1.
Yeah,
Western part of the state will.
exactly. And we all I think we both agree on the winners of all four. So we'll see if we go 4-0. I think we will.
I think we will too. I hope we're. Be honest with you, I'll laugh if we go be just happy as we go 4-0. Be honest with
Well,
you.
I don't care exactly because I got no dog in any fight in any of the fights. So if I
I
went
just
0-4, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Other than wow, we really missed it. But as far as the teams winning, that's fine, man. I say go out there and do it. Prove us wrong.
yeah, I want some close games. That's what I want to.
Yeah,
Well, Dale, thank you so much for tonight. I'll catch up with you later on. I'm kind of like you. I'm kind of tired and want to call it an
yeah,
evening.
yeah. I need to hit my messages and my email and all because I've been tied up training people all day, so I haven't had a chance to really catch up on any other communications. So
Gotcha.
let, let me do that, and we'll talk to you. We'll see you back online next week, and maybe it just depends. We might see you Saturday.
All right, sounds good, Dale.
All right,
All
take
right,
care.
take care now. Enjoy the week. All right, see you.
See you. All right, where we go? There we go.